I'm Keep Drawing Charlie, thanks for tuning in. Here's a little Q&A video about my dragon puppet Tatsuko. And if you stick around to the end of the video, there's a teaser for my next dragon puppet. First of all, I wanted to thank you so much for the comments and the compliments that you left on my previous video about how to make this puppet. It means a lot to me when someone says that they're trying to make a puppet after seeing the video and that it's helped them puzzle through a part on theirs. And parts that they've been stuck on. Comments like this are exactly the reason that I filmed the video and that I spent days and days editing down that video into something watchable. I don't edit videos, and that was quite a chore to learn, but I'm glad that it's worked and I'm glad that it was usable for everybody. So I wanted to answer some questions or just some sort of comments that were left. So yes, it does look a bit like Falkor, the luck dragon from the Neverending Story. There are countless people drawing comparisons. I actually did not look at any photos of Falkor while I was making the dragon. It was created from my own personal sketches and designs. I drew influence from Asian cultures and researched into how China and Japan portrayed their dragons in ancient art. But ultimately, I kind of just adjusted to what I wanted to make and what I could make with the time I had and the materials I had, which is ultimately why the puppet's claws are more like paws with claws in them and not kind of like completely scaled long fingers. And if I had the time, I would have put a spine down the back as well, which would have made it look less like Falkor. Admittedly, I also did take inspiration from Haku from Spirited Away as well, which some people have managed to see. And yes, I suppose it does look like I'm making a fursuit head in places. The puppet is huge and made with fur fabric, so comparisons will be drawn. Feel free to draw them, I don't mind. I mentioned in the video that I followed videos by fursuiters to help me sculpt the feet, which were very helpful, and they also helped me how to understand how to pattern the face and apply the fur. So fursuiters have my utmost respect for the work they put into their craft, and the furry community are a lovely and welcoming bunch. Got no problem with that. Right, on to the questions that have been asked in the comments and by other folks in person. Where did you learn to make it? I didn't learn to make it from anyone or anywhere in specific. I have knowledge and experience in a lot of different areas that I thought would be enough to bring the project to life. I'm an illustrator, so I can design and paint. I've made stuffed toys before, so I can use patterns and sew, and I can sculpt as well. So all of this together with the resources that I found online from other creators helped me to create the puppet. How heavy is the puppet? The puppet is actually quite light. I made the head to be as light as possible. It's a really awkward angle to kind of hold because you have to hold it up about here. And it pulls on muscles that aren't usually used in the back, so the head is made to be as light as possible. I think maybe I'll weigh it and actually give you the exact number, but it's pretty light. The body is heavier because it can be, and it rests on my shoulders and I can take the weight a lot easier there. So overall the weight kind of comes from the body, but you can't feel it as much when it's on top of you. How is the jaw hinged? It's hinged with a method I learned on YouTube. Unfortunately, I can't show you here as the hinges on this will be about located here. So I'll leave a link in the description below to the video that I referenced that helped me hinge this, and will probably be how I hinge all of my puppet jaws from now on if they're made to be any sort of animals like this. How much did it cost to make? Okay, so at the beginning of the project, I did keep a note of expenses, of what I purchased and what cost what, and this totally went above £100, and I sort of stopped counting because it was a bit like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I've spent this much money on just ping pong balls for the eyes, because there was no other way to purchase them. I had to purchase like a pack of 8, and I only wanted maybe 3, 1 to destroy by mistake and 2 to use, but yeah, that was where my expenses kind of went. And I believe I stopped counting before I purchased the fur fabric as well, and I wanted to buy good quality fur fabric, so I'd give a conservative estimate of 150 quid in terms of costs. But keep in mind that I come from a family of crafters and makers, and I had access to a lot of tools and materials that I didn't have to buy myself. I imagine if you're starting with absolutely no materials, the cost will be a lot higher. The biggest expenses in the end were the plastizote for the face. Let me bring you back a little bit. Don't fall. Yeah, plastizote for the face, and the large block of upholstery foam that were used for the arms and the padding on the face, and of course the fur fabric. Can you explain how you made the eyes? I'm afraid there's not much else I can add to explain the blinking mechanism used in this puppet. It's incredibly fiddly and delicate, and I would in no way recommend going about it the way I did. If you want to see the basic mechanism that I used, please check out the link in the description that I'll put there. I attempted to follow that and then admittedly kind of threw it out the window, and my dad, who's a bit of an engineer, sort of tinkered and found a way to make it work for me. I would never make another puppet with the blink mechanism that I put in this. I would never want to sell that to a client because it is held together with rubber bands and that's not going to last. In my new puppet I've developed a far easier blink mechanism, which I'll show you now through a video I took at the time. Can I have the pattern? Thank you for your interest, but I made this pattern a long time ago with no idea what I was doing. Looking back now, it's overly complicated and messy, and I couldn't in all good conscience put that up for purchase in the state that it's in. And I also ask you to please remember that I'm, as a creative freelancer, making these puppets is also a job and a source of income, and as such I will probably not release patterns for free. I'm afraid I need to pay rent and bills just like everybody else. In other news though, the new dragon puppet that I'm creating will have all patterns available to purchase later this year. I've got some interesting plans for that one and the stuff that will be available for use. If there's still interest after I've released that for the big dragon head, I will look at cleaning up the pattern and making it available to purchase as well. What resources would I recommend for anybody wanting to try puppet making, and what fabrics would I recommend? First of all, I would do a deep dive into online tutorials out there and find what can help you out, such as my previous video, walking through the build. If you find certain aspects hard to replicate, then scale them back or remove them entirely. Your first puppet doesn't have to blink. I'm just an overachiever and for some reason I really wanted it to blink, and it was just impossible to do, and I'm surprised we got through to it. So it doesn't have to blink, it really doesn't. I'm making a puppet at the moment that will not blink. And it means that you can make the eyes look a lot nicer because you're not painting onto a ping pong ball and that sort of thing. If you don't have the time or the hand dexterity to sew scales on, like just so many scales, you could just use a scale print fabric. Be creative and think outside of the box. If it is your first time creating something like this, I'd recommend maybe not going for expensive materials, including the fur fabric. There are some fur fabrics out there that are like £40 a metre that I would love, but I went for something cheaper because I didn't know if I'd mess anything up, and I wanted to have enough material that if I messed up I could still use the rest of it. So it's a higher quality material than the base level, but it's not like top tier on this one. Not yet. On to questions that weren't about the build of the puppet. What does the inside of Tatsuko's mouth look like? Right, here we go. Here is the inside of the mouth. I'm quite pleased with how I was able to paint it. It is a little rubbed away in places now with the foam coming through, so it does need a bit of a repaint at this point. Okay, with my hand in, it looks like this. And you can see that it's not really able to be seen. The puppet really has its mouth all the way open like this, so you don't tend to see my hand. But you could totally put a black glove on or paint hand black to cover it up if need be. Did you make the puppet just for yourself or for an event? So the puppet was made for a live-action roleplay game, or colloquially called a LARP. In the game, my character Genie, who's an alchemist and a sorcerer, found Tatsuko while meditating on new magic, is the kind of story we use to bring them in. But Tatsuko is not actually a dragon. They are a being of pure magical energy that has taken the form of a dragon, because dragons don't actually exist within that universe of that LARP. They interact with people. They were actually quite mean to some people and sort of exploded a sorcerer when they came into being. I'm sorry again, Irving, for that. We also discovered that they're the perfect height for receiving chin scritches, which is definitely their favourite place to be scritched now. And if you scritch them enough under the chin, then they do flop over, which is quite fun to watch people react to that. Do you get other people to perform it if need be? Tatsuko has been performed by other people. They are friends that I trust, and they're also actually the same build as me, because the puppet has been made to my specifications, and the finger holds inside the head are very tight and are made for very small hands, like mine. But everyone who has performed with it has done amazingly, and it's a massive bonus for me to be able to experience the puppet from the other side, so that I can interact with it rather than all the time I spend performing it for others. It's a nice feeling to be able to see it. How long can you realistically perform in it? I'd say my soft cap is about 30 minutes. After this my arm starts to really ache because the lactic acid builds up in my muscles. I can remedy this by resting my arm, usually by placing it on someone else's shoulder with the puppet head, so I can rest here. Or I can have I don't have to leave. If there's tables around, I can sit down and like lay my whole arm down as though like Tatsuko is resting, and that means that I can rest it all in character and I don't have to leave and take off the whole puppet when my arm starts to hurt. At a push, I can go for an hour. I've done this before and it really ruined me. I only got through it because of the adrenaline, and I'm holding my performing arm up with my other arm at times. Sometimes I just had to look like I was cradling Tatsuko back around on themselves. But yes, I'd say half an hour at a time really is what is sort of what I try and do. Otherwise my arm just aches for like days afterwards. How do you put it on? Like this. Alright, and that's how I put on the dragon. My fake arm is now actually padded out a bit more and actually sewn into the pocket so it doesn't accidentally fly out, which means that I can stand here like this. Alright, I might take them off very soon though because it is quite warm in here today. How did you develop the personality? The personality came through slowly as the puppet took shape. I learned a lot of like dog body language for puppeteering it because I'd never really done puppeteering before, and that was at least something I could reference. I know how dogs sort of react to things, like, and just like the kind of curiosity and the puppy sort of wanting to like chew and bite everything. In the days before the event, I'd sit down in front of my mirror and interact with the puppet. I would put the whole thing on and I would look at myself in the mirror, see how they moved around, and see how I could like effectively interact with the puppet and not make it look like I was anticipating the puppet's moves, like to make it more natural. The puppet would move and then I would move in reaction to that. They turned out to be quite mysterious and attention-seeking, but there were times where they calmed down, became very soft and loving, and rubbed their nose on new friends they quite like to kind of like push up against. It's quite nice. Why do you refer to the puppet as they? Thank you. Tatsuko, the character, is a being of pure magical energy, as I mentioned previously, and thus has no gender, hence why I refer to the character as they. But when I'm referring to the build or the puppet, I just tend to use it for ease. Do you sell puppets and take commissions? I do indeed. At the time of making this video, I don't have any pre-made puppets to sell. I hope to make a small one over the summer and document the entire build for another video, in much the same way I did Tatsuko. I do also take commissions. The dragon I'm working on right now has been commissioned. I'm working on that for a client. And I have a very tiny little small animal puppet that I'm working on as well for another client. If you are interested in commissioning a puppet, go onto my website linked below, and you'll be able to find my email there, or message me on any social media platforms that I've linked below. Please bear in mind, commissioning or buying a puppet is not cheap. They are bespoke pieces of art made with high quality materials, and they take a lot of time to create. What are you working on? Well, right now I'm working on a smaller dragon puppet for a client and a tiny mouse puppet for another client, and a whole werewolf kit for a LARP coming up at the end of this year. You can see videos of the dragon being made on my channel right now. I try and upload a video at each major milestone so you can see how it's been coming together. Right now you can see a preview of what the head mask piece of the werewolf looks like on my Patreon as well as the first look of the head of the mouse puppet. Right, that's the end of the questions. If you have enjoyed my videos and you want to keep up to date on the projects that I'm doing, please remember to subscribe. While I hate to say it, it does help if you click the bell to enable notifications as well as like the video. That's just how YouTube algorithm works. If you'd like to support my work and get updates before anybody else, then why not consider donating to my Patreon? The tip jar is only $2 a month, and it gives you access to art and videos that I make and I put up on there sooner. And then I also forget to make live on YouTube half of the time because YouTube is a new thing for me, and trying to add it to the litany of things that I need to remember to update, it tends to come last. I try my best and I'll get better, but if you go onto Patreon you'll see them all way sooner. There are also $7 and $12 a month tiers that include a personalised sketch each month, so check that out for more awesome arts of your own characters. You can Google Keep Drawing Charlie to find me elsewhere, or click the links below if you want to follow me on Instagram, Facebook or Twitter, although Twitter is mostly Animal Crossing content right now, so you have been warned. I'm enjoying it a lot. Right, one last thing before I go. If you've watched all this way through, you deserve a little bonus. I'm going to go get the head of the dragon that I'm currently working on. And there she goes! Right, updates on that one are coming soon, and remember to subscribe if you want to see them. See you soon!